Thank you very much. Look, thanks a lot for coming along, and it's a real pleasure, especially if this works, to talk to you about this passion of mine. Basically, how do we get people to implement lean? Because lean is self-evident, it's obvious. If we want to stay in business, we've got to do those things. And yet, organisations in construction really struggle to implement lean. And that's really, I guess, the main thing I want to talk about. So lean is, that's how I define lean. I mean, there's different definitions around, but the focus is on continuous. And by continuous, I mean that this week is going to be better than last week was. That focus of everyone in the organisation at all levels across the organisation committed to doing things better this week than last week. How do we actually activate that? And to focus on those two things, customer service and product quality, right? Customer service. I did a study a couple of years ago. We asked 110 subcontractors in the Sydney market, who are your customers? Only one answer, head contractor. No following trade, no end user, just the head contractor, he pays the bills. So we don't even know who our customers are within the supply chains in construction. We don't think that way. And when I say product quality, it's all aspects of product quality. I'm talking about...
Just the arrows will do it if you're having trouble.
I'd love the arrows to work, yeah.
There you go. Try it.
Right. Thank you. So all the dimensions of product. So product quality, I'm talking about cost, I'm talking about functional aspects of quality, everything. So there's a couple of myths I want to focus on. I mean, Derek in his talk sort of put a whole lot of tools up there, but lean is not tools. We use tools, everybody uses tools. Everybody in this room is using tools all the time. But lean is much bigger than that. Lean goes back to the previous slide. It's those ideals of continuously improving customer service and quality, product quality. That's what lean is. How do we drive that? So yes, we use tools, but it isn't tools. It's also this question of waste. Yes, we do eliminate waste, but whose waste do we eliminate? We're focused on our own processes. A guy called Modig wrote a book a few years ago, and he gave this really startling sort of a story. He said, think of two women in two different countries who have the risk of breast cancer. And one of them goes through the system as it is in our country, goes to a doctor, goes to get some scans, goes to another doctor, goes to get some more scans, goes off to get another doctor. Doctor says you've either got it or not. 6 weeks have elapsed. Another woman goes to a centre where everyone's co-located, goes in on the first floor. Doctor says, get a scan on the second floor. It won't take long, stand in line, you'll get an appointment. Goes to the third floor, sees another doctor, fourth floor. By the end of the day, she knows the answer one day. Different focus. So whose waste are we actually getting rid of? What's our view of waste? Because we're not thinking about the customer's value there. We focus on our own processes. Now, in the first example there, everyone in that medical supply chain is optimising their own time. They're not optimising the value that they're giving to the customer. How often are we guilty of doing the same thing? And also there's a bit of a fallacy that, because we heard that it comes from automotive, it comes from manufacturing. That's where lean was initially conceptualised for our world. So it applies to repetitive processes. And I've worked on a couple of projects. On one of them was a rail project, and the project manager was absolutely thrilled about lean. He really wanted to do it, but he waited nearly 12 months until they were laying track, because that was repetitive, because that was like manufacturing, so it had application. And another one, a builder building all sorts of different sorts of buildings, was waited till he got a student project with lots of identical units, repetition. Now, repetition's a great thing. Standardisation's a big idea in lean, but it doesn't just apply to those. It applies to everything. I was doing some work in Canada, on the Alaska pipeline. I was in a meeting, and the client said to the consulting engineering firm who were doing the design, he said, look, if you can't sort out your invoicing, we're going to look for another consultant. Now just think about that, a $40 billion project, and the engineer hears that if they can't sort out their invoicing, they're going to look for another consultant. So Lean applies to everything, back office services, client relationships, marketing, doing work in the field, absolutely everything. And the ideas are fairly basic. Can't see that. Okay. So what are the hallmarks of a lean organisation? So I've only got two things here, but plans are actually realised, because what I've learnt is over years of consulting in this area that people sort of listen to what is lean and they say, oh yes, look, we've got a real challenge with short-range planning. Let's have a go at that. So we run some workshops. We do it on one site. Does it go beyond one site? Does it go across the organisation? Is it picked up by head office? What happens is the board or the senior manager delegates it to a project manager. The project manager delegates it to a superintendent. There's a course run on a site. Maybe a couple of days are spent at it. Maybe some practices on that side are improved. It's never reported back up to the senior management and board. Almost never. So the first thing, and this was mentioned by Derek, we need senior level leadership. We need senior management to commit resources and to commit to the process, and they have to see what's actually being achieved. And the other thing is, and this is the other hallmark of a lean organisation, that everybody, as I said before, everybody across the organisation is committed to making outcomes, processes, everything better next week than it was this. Now, how do you achieve that? It means that you've got to measure things that count. Don't measure everything, because you'll stop doing that very quickly. Work out what counts, work out what you want to change, measure it, report it back up, and continuously focus on improvement. Now, as simple as it sounds, it's clearly not simple. We're an industry that's absolutely flat out sort of fighting fires. We don't have time to stop and think. Now, this is sort of a productivity curve that's in a book that I wrote. It was mentioned. 60 years productivity of all industries versus construction in the US. This is business as usual. So clearly that's not business as usual, right? That's not what we do in this industry. This is what we do in this industry. We struggle to learn from project to project. We struggle to improve. And part of the problem, I think, is that we delegate so much responsibility to the site that head office has basically got their hands tied. They don't want to influence who's responsible for the risk. They don't want to influence what happens on the site. They want the site project manager to deliver the outcome that they want in terms of time and cost and safety nowadays, although some safety legacy issues come back to bite the organisation after the project manager's left. So how do we actually change that? That's the challenge that we have. So these are the things that lean organisations do. So, you know, I gave you the example that we don't even know who our customers are. Well, in lean organisations, every part of the organisation is switched on to who their customers are. They survey them and get feedback, because feedback drives improvement. Everything on this slide is about continuous improvement. Every line item. The first one, feedback. Adopting best technologies. Not when the government tells you that you've got to implement BIM, but because you realise that BIM's going to create value. Look for what's going to add value and deploy it. Don't wait till someone is going to tell you how to do it. Eliminate the right waste and all waste, absolutely. Empower people at the bottom, measure performance, and don't repeat mistakes. A couple of quick slides, a few case studies. This one is just about the relationship between planning reliability and labour productivity, right? We've got a petrochemical plant here, a refinery, 100-odd trade packages. That line there represents the relationship on the vertical axis between productivity, labour productivity, and across the bottom PPC, which is plan percent complete. How reliable is the weekly plan? How much of it did you do? That's what that curve is. It shows that we price work, our budget expects 50% reliability of short-range plans, 50 or 60, and that's been measured a lot. That's pretty normal. And if we actually can improve our reliability of our plan to 80%, we save 30% in labour productivity. So, you know, and usually people sort of say, yeah, this lean stuff sounds good, but what's the bottom line? That's the bottom line, basically. Reliable plans improve labour productivity, and it's intuitively makes sense. It's got to be right, because otherwise we're all dancing around each other waiting to get access to the work or waiting to get access to a workplace that is ready for us. A few quick pointers too. Waste. Yes, we do try to eliminate waste, but everybody on the shop floor, all through the organisation, has to understand what are the forms of waste. They've got to be looking for it. And this is from a site where every worker had a laminated card that looks like that in their pocket with a pen on it, and every worker was empowered to write on that, put his ideas on it, hand it into the superintendent. Now, coming off a low base, no doubt, but that organisation doubled its labour productivity within 2 years. Standardise and organise. You know, is that what our building sites look like? Is that how material comes onto our sites? Is the material off the ground and ergonomically available for the workers? Is that what a fire sprinkler setup looks like? That sort of workstation? The truth is, we don't see that very often. We allow the subbies to do what they do, the way they do it, more or less. I was just recently on a site where, you know, we buy subbies at the cheapest price. So on this particular project, the air conditioning subcontractor had a very cheap price. Everybody paid. The logistics was wrong, the sequence of delivery of product to the site was wrong, and in no time at all, that 8-storey building had everybody jumping around all over the place, working around, looking for available work to do, because we bought a cheap subby who didn't have the capacity to deliver. Can we afford to do that sort of thing? This is a quick example of just getting people to give their ideas, and there's a lot of that happening in the US where, and you know, we hear from the US, and Sutter Health was one of the leaders there. I was at a US Lean Congress 10 years ago, there were 50 people there. Now they have 2,000. Why? They had 20% unemployment in construction. The smart companies realised they had to get smart. That's why Lean has been adopted in the US. This is an idea. So instead of taking all the wasteful packaging onto the site and off the site, all of the china's in a trolley, comes delivered on that, gets rolled up to the floor where it's going to be installed, and there's no packaging waste coming onto the site and going off the site. The visual workplace was mentioned for problem solving interactively, giving oversight of a program of work, or basically looking at the rate of improvement, changes in performance. This was a workshop that we ran in Canada. There were about 20 people on the design team there. It took us 10 hours to redesign the program because they had an unachievable program. Make sure the program is achievable, get the people involved or it won't be achievable. And then that's the graph there of the improvement in reliable promising over the next 3 months or so. Planning. So this is an architectural practice who used the ideas of Lean and Last Planner in particular. That's the reliability of promises over the first 3-month period of their implementation. That's the second. Now what they did is they taught their people to make reliable promises. They taught them to think about, why didn't I get done what I had said I would get done last week? What went wrong? How do I improve my performance and my ability to make reliable promises? The organisation de-stressed, overtime was stopped, and they were more profitable within 6 months. A few other quick case studies. So this is Baker Concrete built 2 structures here. They got a Lean organisation onto one of them, so they recruited some people, found their best people in-house who had some Lean background. They compared the 2 projects side by side, and that's a quick snapshot of, you know, what they measured. They measured equipment use, productivity, speed, and so forth. So just a quick snapshot of what people measured. Sutter Health, you heard from Sutter Health there in that first session. Once again, some of the things Sutter Health as a client is measuring on their projects. They're reporting this. And one of the senior managers of Sutter said to me, they said, next time we build a hospital, we want to contract with the whole supply chain as one alliance, as one organisation. We don't want anyone to distort our interest in the interest of their own. Another client said to me that next time we build a big project, and this was Intel, next time we build a big project, the general contractor will be the last person we employ. They add the least value. That's troubling, isn't it? That's really troubling. But what does it say about the business? The business is broken. We keep doing what we've done. So how do we change it? It's got to be driven from the top. The guys at the top, when they decide to invest in it, they've got to put money into it, they've got to look for feedback, there's got to be milestones, metrics, and they've got to see how the implementation is going, or it won't go anywhere, because that's what I see all the time. The workers come up with the ideas. If you invest in a trial, an intervention, whatever you want to call it, you want to improve planning, get some metrics around that, see how it's going, review it. Thank you. Review it. Otherwise, it won't go anywhere. It's got to have visibility at the managing director's desk. And you do those things. So it comes back to the senior leader as to how you do it. So what I see is, and I started off saying that, LCI in the US, their congresses now get about 2,000 people there. They had 20% unemployment. And people keep asking, well, what's in it? Is there a profit? What does this do to the bottom line? I mean, what's it going to cost us? It's clearly the way to survive. The way to survive is to do things right the first time, and to innovate. And the problem is, I think, that we have an absence of trust, and we have an absence of collaboration in this industry. And they're the two things that drive that productivity curve and keep it horizontal rather than going up. We've got to increase trust, increase collaboration, and get the whole supply chain to work together so that the end workers, the guys who are fixing steel, as Sutter said, they're employed early, they're engaged, they work with the structural engineers to optimise the design. The guys who are building it are working with the guys who are designing it to make sure that innovation is built into the process. If we give people finished plans and say, build this and give me your price, and don't worry about it, I need the price next week, and you're taking all the risk, we're not going to improve anything. Thank you.